You wrote there, Jonathan Swan from Axios. Thanks for joining us. For more now, joined by our panel, former New York Republican Congresswoman Nan Hayworth. She sits on the board of directors at the Independent Women's Forum. And Basil Smikle, he's the executive director of the New York State Democratic Party. Well, Nan, let me start with you. We had some of those clips there from conservative media figures. The sort of voices, by the way, if you hear what Jonathan Swan was just saying, maybe aren't getting to the president these days. But those voices are out there right now saying, look, if Donald Trump goes forward with this deal with Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer on DACA, that's amnesty to the Republican base. That's poison to the Republican base. He's going to lose the base that elected him. Is there truth to that?
I think he does run a risk with the folks who elected him. And, Steve, it's not just Republicans. As we know, the president won the Blue Wall and mining country and the Rust Belt because he appealed to a lot of Democrats who also worry about those issues.
Is this amnesty to them? When he says, because you saw the clip of Trump yesterday, he says, look, they weren't forced, they were forced by their parents to come. You know, but it looks like the Democrats are going to be saying we want permanent status and citizenship, maybe. Where does that fall to these voters?
I think the president is going to think very, very carefully about these things. He is not, as you know, isolated from the voices of his base. But the other factor that is so salient, Steve, is that, and Sean Hannity pointed this out, when health care failed in the Senate, when Senator McConnell couldn't lead to a health care win, the president redoubled his insistence, and I frankly agree with him, that if the Republicans are really going to dominate in the legislative process, the agenda that the president brought forth to the American people and won the Electoral College on, they need to break the filibuster. So long as they don't, Senator Schumer has a lock on legislation. He can really block a heck of a lot of stuff. And that's why I think the president has turned to Schumer and Pelosi.
Well, let me ask you, Basil, from a Democrat standpoint here. When Trump initially, or really Sessions for the Trump administration, initially made the announcement that, hey, this DACA thing is going away, Democrats said, no, we want a clean renewal. We want a permanent status here for DACA. It looks like there's going to be some strings attached here. It looks like there's going to be more money for the border, more border security. Exactly what form that takes, we're not sure yet. Is that acceptable, having even any kind of compromise on this to you as a Democrat?
It's a tough and fine line that they're going to have to walk, because if they're seen, and I trust Nancy Pelosi's reporting of what happened in the meeting, but the challenge for us, for Democrats, is we want to be able to move the needle on policy, but we also don't want, especially after we're coming out of resistance summer, we don't want to seem as though we're capitulating to a president who's obviously very unpopular with Democrats and independents.
So here's an example. Yeah. If Trump comes to the Democrats and says, look, permanent legal status for the DACA folks, I'm okay with that, I will sign that, but it can't be citizenship. The Democrats say deal?
I don't know if they say deal. I don't know if they say deal, because, again, the question becomes, have we failed our base? We've been pushing back on this for so long. And I don't know if it really helps us to say we're going to get everything or a lot of what we asked for, but we're going to still leave the rest to the Republicans and the president to fine tune down the road. I don't know if that works. I trust Chuck Schumer and I trust Nancy Pelosi.
Well, speaking of Chuck Schumer, the Senate Minority Leader, yesterday in what seemed to be a candid moment on the Senate floor, he had a pretty straightforward explanation for why Trump may be working with him. Take a listen.
He likes us. He likes me anyway. Look, what we said was exactly accurate. Here's what I told him. I said, Mr. President, you're much better off if you can sometimes step right and sometimes step left. If you have to step just in one direction, you're boxed. He gets that. Oh, it's going to work out, and it'll make us more productive, too.
Nan Hayworth, what do you make of that? There's all this talk that there's some sort of, New York bond with Trump and Schumer. Schumer he likes to make deals. He likes to cut deals there.
Sure.
Do you see, as a Republican, the basis here? Because what Schumer's describing there is a model not just for this. He's describing a model potentially for a longer-term partnership there between Trump, Schumer, Democratic leaders. As a Republican, what do you think of that?
Steve, it's to be expected. The president has actually a very long-standing relationship with Senator Schumer, not all of which was hostile for a long time, as we know. And Chuck Schumer is an operator in the New York sense of the word, and so is the president in a lot of ways. And to the extent, again, that Senate Republicans cannot lock on the legislation, and that doesn't mean that I, as a Republican, want to see Democrats locked out. What I don't want to see is Chuck Schumer being able to block block any major bill, and I think that's exactly what.
But there's a message. It feels to me Trump is sending a message here to McConnell and to Ryan specifically that almost amounts to you guys failed me. Now I'm looking in the other direction.
I think that's exactly right. He's looking at Chuck Schumer and saying, with all the conversation about a fractured Democratic Party, the Democrats have been holding the line, and you certainly saw that with the health care bill. And he's saying to himself, and I always use the sports parlance, he wants a W. He doesn't think he can get that from his own party. If he looks at Senator Schumer and says, we can get it through the Democrats, I think he wants to be able to do that. The downside is what happens with his base. But I think, to be honest with you, as long as he can go out there and sell something, I think he's okay with that. And for Democrats, that's what we want to see. We want to see Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi holding the line and winning in these ideological battles. And I think for DACA and for other policies, this is going to be this is winning for us.
How many times can Republicans in the House, Republicans in the Senate get a piece of legislation that, hey, this was Trump, this was Pelosi, this was Schumer. That's where the deal was cut. Now you, Republican, you have to vote for it. It looks like DACA, that might happen, maybe.
Yeah.
How many times can they do that?
I think it will be very, very difficult because, I mean, let's face it, we do have a majority of Republicans in both the House and the Senate. But what the president is doing, the president isn't an ideologue. Right. You know, he is not dogmatic about Republican policy. So I think it's a message to Republicans that, look, they have to have their operation finely tuned because you're right, Basil, from the Democrats' point of view, you know, they're sitting in a pretty good position right now.
But we got to be careful because the political cleavage between the president, Republicans, and Democrats still pretty wide. So we still have to be vigilant.
There's a lot of opportunity.
All right. Well, we will see a twist in this the story of the Trump soap opera, a twist at the start of the fall. Nan Hayworth, former Congresswoman, Basil Smikle from the New York Democratic Party. Thanks for joining us. Coming up, new reporting on Russia's effort to influence the 2016 election.